Good morning. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Let's get transitioned over. There we go. All right. Well, first of all, happy Sunday. It's looks like we're gonna get snow today, um, which might be perfect timing for the time of year, right? Um, also, welcome to everybody who's joining us today. Lots of old school friends are here. Good to see you all. Looking forward to today's stream. It should be fun. We are in the middle of upgrading our dependencies, and there's an interesting thing that I've seen a couple of times, and I'm not sure what's causing this, but for some reason, NGRX signals was in both my dev dependencies and my just regular dependencies. And this causes a fun situation where only one gets updated and not the other. I'm not sure what causes it. But it should be one of my dependencies because it's not used only for development. So I don't know what caused it, but we fixed it and everything seems to be working fine. So we just have a couple of things that we want to finish. So I want to run the Angular ESLint through NX Migrate. I run this one through NX Migrate because it might have some Angular stuff in it. We aren't going to upgrade JS DOM. We're going to leave it as is. We will do ng primitives, which will also run through the NX Migrate. And then everything else we'll do with NCU, and then we should be done with that. After that's done, I want to take a look at something that Ole shared. I do want to just let everybody know I am aware of what's going on YouTube. I don't know how to stop it. Everything from my side looks good. YouTube is, for whatever reason, saying that I need to use a key frequency of 4 seconds or less. I've got my key frequency turned up as high as I can. So I don't know what's causing that. Yeah, it just keeps saying that over and over again. And every time it says that, it kind of freezes. And I'm not sure what's causing that issue. It could be the Streamlabs stuff. They may not be sending fast enough key frequencies. I'll have to take a look. This is something I'm off work for the end of the year, so there we go again. I can see YouTube just froze for a second, and now it's catching up. That's fun. Not really. So I apologize to everybody on YouTube. I'm not sure what's causing it. I'll keep my eye on it. So we just upgraded Angular ESLint, exec, nx migrate, ng primitives, and that's the last thing we're going to run through migrate. The last stuff we'll run through just the regular NCU, just regular PNPM stuff. My mind is stuck on why are we getting the freezing? So I'll take a look at that. It's definitely something that I want to fix. But yeah. Other than that, we are going to take a look at anti-gravity today. I was asking in the chat if anybody's used anti-gravity. It's Google's new editor. It's a VS Code fork, um, but it doesn't use all the VS Code stuff. It's more like I would say it's more like VS Codium, um, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Um, Actually, I'm not even going to say it is a bad thing. It it uses a different repository for plugins, but other than that, it's just VS Code. Um, I fired it up for a little bit on this repo. I've used it a little bit in other stuff, but I fired it up just for a little bit on this repo to make sure everything would work. There have been people complaining that it hasn't been working with Angular stuff. So I'm not gonna pretend like, oh, this is the first time I'm seeing it or whatever. I'm not a good enough actor to do that. And let's be honest, I wouldn't do that to you guys anyways. If we're gonna do something blind, we'll do it blind. But yeah, Michael, is Signal Store 21 out? I thought it was only 21 beta 0. It looks like it's out. So if we take a look at the if we take a look at the migrations here, it came out and we are doing the with effects to with event handlers. So it definitely looks like it is out. So the rest of this stuff, we can just do an NCU format group. Let's see UI. We're gonna grab all of this stuff, all of this stuff. That looks fine. Cool. They're working on the announcement post toolkit. We bumped our depth on it, but we have a couple of tweaks to make some features first, and that's cool. We're looking forward to the NGRX toolkit. Also, Michael, just so you guys are aware, I'm going to be ending today on time or maybe a couple minutes early. We're celebrating Christmas with my in-laws today, and so my wife asked me that I end on time so we could be out there. She's helping her mom make the dinner and stuff. So we're going to head out a little bit early today. You'll be listening to me on Twitter then. I'll be listening on Twitter. But chat here. That might be a good way to go. The Twitter one doesn't seem to have the streaming issues. Oh, I've even got a warning going on here. It's just telling me that it thought my mic was unmuted. Well, my mic was unmuted, but the software I hadn't picked up and started sending stuff. So it took a little while for my mic to show up. That's pretty normal. That should be everything, right? So let's get the last of this stuff in. Stage all of this. And we'll commit these. We're going to push. And there were a couple of things I want to take a look at. Just first of all, I wanted to take a look at what changed in NGRX 21. So the update guide has one breaking change. They renamed with effects to with event handlers. And so it looks like these are exactly the same, right? So nothing here that we really need to worry about. This is fascinating. So they're returning an object that has log counts. We're listening to the increment event. Inject events. I need to come back to this because the way I do effects is way more simplistic than this. And so they're actually injecting the events, and then they're using events, and on a certain event, they're on the increment event, they're doing certain things. So they're using the event handler from Signals. So there's this way of introducing. I mean, this is common classic NGRX. This is Redux. This is Redux pretty much right here, right? So in their example here, they're injecting the events from the event piece, and this event is what's allowing them to have the increment event, and they're handling that inside of their effects, which is pretty cool. Looks like YouTube delays a lot. I'm really frustrated with that today. I apologize, you guys. Everything looks good on my end, and that's what's frustrating to me is, as far as I'm concerned, everything. I mean, my ISP is looking good. I'm tracking that right now. I'm tracking my drop packets. I'm tracking everything, and it's just like YouTube just keeps dropping. And I don't know where the issue is. And so I do apologize for that today. It sounds like it's terrible. Because everything else, like if I look at, I'm looking at everything else and it seems to be going okay. But there's this change. The other piece that I wanted to take a look at was shared by, well, actually, let's take a look at the changes in version 21. So the ESLint plugin had some changes made to it. In state rules, ESLint plugin, signals, drop assert in injection context, so there are no unique store members. So they're doing better handling of destructuring. Add ability to provide signal store at the platform level. Add entity changes. Allow computation function to be provided to signal method. And oh, that's cool. So you can provide a computation function. Allow returning an array of observables from with effects. So there's some good stuff going on in here. We'll have to get in and experiment with that. Probably more in the new year. Twitter delay is like minimum 30 seconds. Yeah, I have my Twitter delay. I can't control the delay for Twitter. So for Twitch and YouTube, I have my delay set to 7 seconds, which is the smallest delay that I can give it. The Twitter delay, I have no control over. And so I think it just defaults to a 30-second delay. And I don't know what causes that. But yeah. And I've been looking at some new streaming services. The problem is I don't make enough on streaming to pay for some of the more expensive services that would be nicer. But I'm still looking into it. If I can find one that will allow me to stream to multiple platforms, control my chat in one place from multiple chat platforms and not be super expensive. That's what I'm looking at right now. So I am looking into how we clean this up. The last thing I wanted to take a look at today was with regards to custom controls. So this was shared by Ole. So let me put this link in chat. Wow, that was loud. That was really loud. Anyway, so they've added a whole bunch of stuff on how to create custom controls. So we'll be going through this, I think, today as we look at the date stuff, because I do want to add date stuff to our custom controls. But before we get into this, and there's a lot here to look into, like how do we integrate validation? Actually, let's take a look at this. So like minimal input control, really, we've got our selector, we've got our template, and then down here, we just implement the form value control. What we expected, right? And then we have to provide a value that is a model. And that's it. With a checkbox control, we again have the template, but then we implement form checkbox control, and then we have to provide checked that's a model, and that's a Boolean value, right? Fairly simple. Using the custom control, we can just bring it in and we can bind the field and we're good. And then here they're just showing that, hey, we can do required and stuff. We expect that. Control interfaces, the basic input and the basic toggle. So form value control is the interface for most input types. And if we're using form value control, we can't have a check property. And again, checkbox control is for checkbox like toggles. If we have a checkbox control, we cannot have a value property. So these two are mutually exclusive. If you have a value, then you use form value. If you have a toggle or a checked, then you use form checkbox. Optional state properties. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. And so these both inherit from form UI control. And this means that we can do stuff with touched, dirty, and all of these things, and we can provide signals to control them, and inputs, and they'll be automatically bound. So this is the stuff, and I think I showed up in a couple of talks with Alex Rickabaugh because of a tweet that I put together on how easy this stuff is, which is really, really cool. But yeah, disabled reasons is an array of disabled objects, reason objects. There's a field and a message. So, we can set things like required min, max, min length, and we've done this a bit in our stuff. We used min and max with the star input, and so we've done a couple of things with these. The metadata is there, and then how the field directive works. Like we bind to the field directive. When you bind userform.username, the field directive detects your control implements form value control, internally accesses userform username value and binds it to your control's value, binds form state signals, disable and errors. And this was a recent change where like disabled and errors could be signals. So now adding state signals. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff here. As a result, you can use the control with validation and state management. So yeah, in this control, there's a whole bunch of stuff bound to the signals. And when you implement form value control, notice that there's touched and all of these various signals. Touched has to be a model. Everything else should be inputs as input, and not you need to implement form control interface. Yeah, oh, now you can use form control interpolate. Where's the form control interface? Most state properties use input, read only from the model for touched. Yep, value transformation. And yeah, we can do some value transformation with linked signals, which is what we're going to be using today with the date input. So we've got a display value and an input value. So we implement the form value control here, and the display value is a linked signal based on a currency formatter based on the value. So when the input comes in, we're going to need to take a look at this. I'll need to understand this piece. So with the validation integration, this input Boolean, when you add min and max, yeah, we knew this, that when you add min and max, it automatically adds those bindings. So yeah. So there's a lot going on here. And we'll definitely be digging into some of this today. What I do want to take a look at, let's just make sure that's all there. Actually, the first thing we should do is let's make sure that everything works. I haven't even done that. We updated every library. We updated NGRX signals. We updated so many things, and I haven't even made sure that it compiles and runs. So it looks like Daisy is going. That's a good sign. We're serving on localhost. Let's grab our browser here. Where are we? We're here. Okay, so let's refresh and just make sure everything's working. It looks like everything's working. No errors here. Let's do our sorting. So we're getting our arrows properly. That's all working. If we come in here to this one and we give it a new random number and we save, a random number should show to the top. If we edit this one and we give it a bigger random number and we save, it's at the top. So we're good there. Everything seems to be working appropriately. We can even check these, and when we edit them, it's checked down here. So we're good to go. So everything seems to be working okay. My daughter just came and closed the door. And I'm not seeing any errors down here, so that's good. So we know it all works at this point. Hey, Marcus, welcome to the stream, man. Good to have you here. So we are, you know what, Marcus, I got a question for you. This time of year, lots of people talk about reindeer. Do you get reindeer around the area where you are, or is that more north from you? Very curious. I've always wondered, like, do you get reindeer in Sweden? And it's something I could Google, but why not ask somebody who lives there, right? All right, so we've taken a look at everything. We've made sure everything still works. Let's grab anti-gravity and fire it up. for whatever reason, on Windows, this anti-gravity pops up a bunch of windows. You just have to hit Control D to close them. So it is more north from you. Okay, but there are quite a lot this time of year. It wouldn't surprise me. I was thinking about reusable table component. I think with TanStack table, it actually does make sense to have it as reusable because you can handle everything in the TS. And I agree with you on that, Ole. If you're going to have more than one table, and we talked about this a little bit last time, right? Um, so the last time we talked, if you're going to have more than one table, you should absolutely make it generic. And I agree with what you're saying. A reusable table control or component makes a lot of sense. And there's a whole bunch of code that we could make generic across that table, and we could factor that out. But it comes down to engineering time, right? Where do we want to spend our engineering time? I read an interesting tweet from the Primogen yesterday that I reshared, where he was talking about we're producing more code than ever, but the quality of the code has not improved. And that's a fascinating take on code. You know what? Let's quit Grammarly. And AI allows us to produce a ton of code, and we're going to take a look at that today. And you know, the AI can do a ton of code really, really quickly. Is that code better? So when we drive up north to ski, you sometimes end up in the middle of a pack of reindeer that are walking along the highway, eating all the salt on the roads. Oh, that's fascinating. See, in Utah, they don't spread salt on the roads, they spread sand. And we live by the Great Salt Lake. There's a ton of salt in the area, but there's already so much salt in the precipitation that the salt gets up into like your undercarriage and starts to corrode your car. So they don't spread as much salt in Utah as in like other states. A lot of other places, including where Marcus lives, they use salt. And here we use sand because there's just like when it rains, you're getting salt. And like my car has been sitting out on the driveway for a while, and you can just see where all of the rain is hit and then evaporated, and it just leaves behind salt. So yeah, they spread sand mostly here, which has its pros and its cons too, right? It's just like everything else, right? There's pros and cons to everything. But let's talk about this. With anti-gravity, you get access to a couple of different models. I've been using Gemini 3 Pro, and it's pretty good. But a lot of people like Claude. I hear music coming from the other room, and it's like distracting me. So let's ask you guys. Do you guys want to take a look at Gemini 3, or do you guys want to take a look at Claude as our LLM to run our AI experiment today? We'll start out with Gemini 3, and then if you guys want to go to Claude, we can take a look at Claude. So the first thing we could do is just be like, give me an overview of this project and point out potential areas for improvement. Right? And the other thing we can do is we can make this bigger so everybody can see it. So we're going to ask the AI, hey, let's just take a look over the project. Tell me where we can improve. I've got it set to planning mode. I've got it set for Gemini 3 Pro, and we'll hit enter. And at this point, one of the things I did set up is I set it up not to be on quick mode, but to be on agent mode, and in agent mode, you have to tell it that you want it to continue. Fascinating. Oh yeah, we can add comments here. So yeah, we can add comments and tell the LLM what we want it to do. It's still doing some analysis here. And we're using a thinking model. I'll step up and say that AI code is not better in any way. The only advantage is the illusion of speed. And that's, you know, right now, I think you're correct. You'll alternate. For most teams is good enough, but just because the problems introduced by AI code are not measurable. And that's good feedback. We, as an industry, as we look at what LLMs do, we're beginning to discover some areas where LLMs are falling short. Oh, it's waiting for me to accept. It wants to run my tests, so I'll let it run my tests. LLMs fall short because with transformers and stuff, don't take this the wrong way, but the way I look at LLMs is like glorified Markov chains. And if you don't know what a Markov chain is a way to take like a large amount of text or something and predict the next most likely token in that text, right? Sounds very, very similar if you know what LLMs do. LLMs use transformers and they use vectors and things like that to see they do that to see, what do we want to call it? Like, they do it better, they do it faster, right? But the problem with LLMs is an LLM is never going to generate something it hasn't seen before. It's just not possible based on the training. They're trained on such a wide amount of things that the LLMs can produce things that we think, doesn't look the same. But there's a reason that people are able to pick out AI images and stuff because they all start to look the same. In the future, LLMs will probably get better. But to your point, Alternate, all of the issues that we introduce in code are going to be introduced by LLMs. I like agentic flow because with agentic flow, we can do things like what we're doing here, where we're saying, hey, give me an overview. And let's open up this task.md. Hello? If I close this and I tell it to open it, what happens? I just get this. Still says it's in progress for a couple of things. But it looks like it's found a couple of things. It looks like we've got an issue over here. So with the exploration, it ran the tests. It looked at our files. It analyzed everything about our project. So I've analyzed your project overview. This is an Angular 21 experiment exploring signals for everything, form, state management inputs. The tech stack is Angular 21 RC. That's not true anymore. NGRX signals, signal store, Zod for validation, mutative for immutable updates, Tailwind CSS plus Daisy UI. So it picked out most of our tech really, really well. But that's package.json stuff. Architecture, single app NX workspace uses a custom experimental signal forms pattern with schema-driven validation. That's correct. Current status, tests are failing. There are 3 failed tests. Yes, we haven't done anything with tests. Code quality. Generally high quality, modern Angular practices, standalone signals and composition. Thank you for that, Gemini. I love it. Potential improvement. Here's my top recommendations. Fix failing tests. The code base is currently in a broken state. Yep. Refactor, create delta. The state update logic in to-do list store.ts uses some complex commented out logic and hard-coded exclusions. This can be made more robust. I'm curious what this means. Improve form layout. The to-do form uses a rigid grid, which breaks responsiveness. We can switch to a flexible flexbox or grid gap implementation. I'd love to see what it thinks about this too. Organize components. Move to-do-star components into a feature directory. Source app features to-do to keep the root clean. Another fascinating idea. So let's start a new conversation. Let's go to Claude Sonnet here. And let's go back. I want to grab the same prompt because I don't want to accidentally create a prompt that's going to give us different answers. So let's go over to the current. Nope. Let's add a new one. Let's swap over to Claude Sonnet and let's use the same prompt. And let's just see what Claude Sonnet gives us. So let's compare the two. So right away, Claude Sonnet picked up some stuff. It is analyzing the README. It is analyzing package.json. It's already faster. I'll tell you that right now. It's faster than Gemini. And it's going through the various inputs themselves. Maybe we'll stick with Sonnet today. Maybe we'll stick with Claude. Yeah, so I'm skeptical about most AI code. I hear you with that, Michael. Take this example right now. I'm working on a personal project with 3.js. All my imports look like import this from 3. Was that based on code written by the AI or dang, Claude is like outputting a novel here. So I'm pretty familiar with Gemini 3, and Gemini 3 is pretty good. But let's take a look at what Claude said, right? This is an Angular 21 experimental project that explores the Angular signal-based forms API, introduced in Angular signal primitives. This project demonstrates Angular practices by building a to-do list application with advanced form controls and state management. So right away, it picked up that we're using Angular 21, the latest, not an RC. We're using NX monorepo with Vite. We're using NGRX signals and NGRX toolkit. It picked up the NGRX toolkit. That's cool, Michael. That one's really cool. I asked Gemini to do something, and it changed the imports to import star as 3 from 3, despite this being absolutely, oh, that's annoying. That's actually really annoying. So we're using Angular signal forms, Zod schema validation, Daisy UI, Tailwind CSS components. We're using Tailwind CSS version 4, TanStack Angular table. And so we're using the mutative library. So already Claude picked up a better understanding of the tech stack. The architecture, we're following a clean component-based architecture. So to-do is our main container component. To-do form is for editing that, and the table is sortable table using TanStack table with inline editing. There's not really inline editing except for the checkbox, but I'll give it that to it. Input, reusable text input with Zod error display, star input, custom star rating 1 to 5 with color coding, random number. So there's some good stuff here that it's picking up, right? Button that generates a random numbers in a range, and then content projection wrapper for custom styled inputs. That's cool. It picked that up. Inside of stores, we got our NGRX signal store with immutable state management using mutative, very cool. And then Zod schemas for type safe validation, factory functions for creating to-do objects. Already, I like Claude better. This is probably why people like Claude. So yeah, Marcus, I think it's important to know that AI is not necessarily intelligent and will frequently quite often make silly mistakes. It's important to give it tools, though, so it doesn't have to use its brain, like MCP tools. I agree with that, Marcus. And one of the things that I'm trying to do more is refer to it as an LLM, right? A large language model instead of an AI, because an AI presupposes intelligence. And I totally agree with everything that Marcus said, that it's not necessarily intelligent. AI will always force you to its level and do things its way, which if you are better than AI is a downgrade. That's a good take, Johan. I like that take, and I'm going to have to think about that take for a bit. LLMs are not very good at math, as an example, but it can query tools that actually know math, and that's where they can get quite powerful. Think the models and agents have really taken a big jump the last month. And that's what I agree with, Marcus. Being able to understand the entire code base. So I understand this code base because, I've written it. I know what's in everything, and that's... But if you go to work and you do an agentic flow and you're just like, hey, tell me what's in this code base. Give me an overview. Where can we improve, right? Oh, guess what? Somebody's getting banned. Possible ban evader. Oh. LLMs, yeah. So yeah, we got our ban evader and we banned them. But I do like the AI will always force you to its level. That is a good take on it. So potential areas for improvement, console logs in production code. It's going to call this out. I like this call out. I'm not going to change it. Debugging statements should be removed. Commented code in dead code should be removed. This is also true, but I don't agree with it. Because the commented code is there for teaching purposes, I don't want to remove it. It's not that I don't agree with it. I don't want to remove it. Multiple commented approaches. Again, the commented code is there for teaching purposes. README is still generic. Yeah, that's a good call out. So it's recommending doing this stuff, type safety and error handling, potential array access error. Oh, yeah, this is true. This is very true. So if we take a look at this, we've got to find index. But if we don't find an index, we've got a problem. And this is very good call out. This is here because we don't have the ability to create an item. And that's one of the things we should do today. Same issue with toggle to do. Yes, this is true. This one is very true, and we should fix this one. Type guard is task could use Zod for validation instead. Where is my is task? Oh, this is fascinating. I love this recommendation. This is actually a really good recommendation. I love this recommendation. And this is where I think LLMs are good. I hadn't thought about using Zod for my type guard. In the past, I've used like pattern matching libraries or things like that. But Zod would be an amazing so here we're checking for a -1. That's probably a good one. Man, there's so much here. So one thing we could do while we're going through this is we could just say, hey, show me an alternate is task description that uses Zod for validation, or for the type guard, right? I want to see what it comes up with. Okay. Dude. Simple and fast, only checks, validates both existence and types, uses existing schema definition, more robust against invalid data, slightly slower, negligible in most cases. So let's take a look at what it did. So absolutely, here's an alternate implementation using Zod. So task description schema. So it created the schema, which is a Z object that needs a name and a description. They're both strings. Create a type guard using Zod safe parse. Is task description value unknown? Value is this. And because we created the Zod schema, we could actually even fix this up a bit. And then we do a safe parse. Fascinating here. So that leverages existing Zod dependency. You're already using Zod for form validation. Schema definition is clear and declarative. Safe parse won't throw errors, just return success or failure. It's reusable, right? Which I like about this. And Zod ensures the type guard matches the schema, which I like also. Reuse existing schema since you already have the to-do parser defined in here. Import to-do parser. We could pick the name and the description. Oh, fascinating here. I like this. This is even better because it reuses your existing schema and stays dry. Any changes to the validation rules for name or description in your to-do model will automatically apply here too. Okay, I'm going to say Claude is impressive here. But let's give Gemini a chance, right? So let's swap back over here. Let's just see what Gemini comes up with. So hey Gemini, show me an alternate is task description that uses Zod for the type guard, right? And let's take a look and see what it comes up with. So here we go. I'll check the current implementation. It is task description in the to-do table file. Perfect. I can see the current is task description card here. So it's saying to import Zod. It's creating the schema. Fine. Okay. So the two models are doing stuff that I would want to do. So right here, our task description is being inferred from this task description schema. So I like this right away. It's a little over the top here because this is a type guard, so it's adding, like, it's picking up on the fact that we're throwing a lot of stuff to the console. Where Gemini wins is here and here. But Claude definitely wins hands down for the second reuse alternative. When I was thinking about, when it suggested it, this is where my mind went. But using the pick from Zod is a huge win. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go into our model. Where's my to-do model? Here we go, down in the models. So we're going to create, so we're going to keep that one open. We're going to open our to-do model. And what we want is we want to create a task description. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff here, but we can add some stuff here. So we've got our to-do model, and we've got our to-do model keys and non-edit right. We've got all of this cool stuff here. We've got our schema, we've got our factory, but we could also add another type. So we can export const task description, and this will be, we'll pick up the to-do parser. To-do parser, we're going to say dot pick. And here we're going to pick name, true, and description true. So now our task description, if we look, is just our name and description, which is cool. So now we've got our validator that we can use. And actually, we don't even need to export this. We can just say, hey, our task description is this. And then here, the next thing we can do is we can say, hey, we want export type, and then, yep, we want to infer our task description type. So when we look at this, now our task description type is a name and a description, and they're both required. So we're good there. And then the last piece we want here is we want to export a function. And this is task description. And so now we've got our save parse here. What is going on here? I'm not sure what all of this strike through stuff is. Oh, it was trying to do a task description factory. So that was showing up on the side. So now we've got this is task description. We can take this one out. We don't need it anymore. And instead, up here, we can import our task description from our to-do models. And so we've made a couple of changes here. And I really like the changes that it suggested. So right off the bat, we've created this reusable task description. And this is the power of Zod, is you can use pick, you can use omit, you can use all of these cool things. So the really cool thing about this is our task description is going to have a name. It's going to be a string, and it has to be a minimum of 3 characters. It also has to have a description that has to be a minimum of 10 characters. So right away, our type is better. Whether or not that's better is, up to us to decide. I'm going to say it is better, but now we're in a good place to be able to use this. And the cool thing we can say is, because we've got the type guard in place, with our task description here, oh, how is it pulling that in? Oh, it's just pulling it in. That's right. We're just returning. That's very cool. The benefit to this is that this function could be moved out of here if we wanted it to. But I'm happy with that. We can now go and take a look at our signal forms, and we can see that, hey, our task description just works just fine. So already, like, we like to slam dunk on LLMs, right? Because it's easy. A lot of times LLMs generate bad code. And the code that the LLM generated wasn't necessarily the code that I wanted. But this is where it becomes a tool for you and not something for you to rely on, right? It becomes a tool and not a crutch. The fact that it came up with this idea, I love. This was huge. There's some problems with this in that I would like to have its own type. I want it to be in its own file. And then say, I can just ask it, how did I do in my refactor? And let's see what it says. I like that the thought is here to praise me. Did you see that? Praise what they did well. And this is excellent refactor. You did a great job implementing the Zod-based type guard. What you did, perfect placement. You added it to the model, perfect dry principle. You reused the existing pick instead of duplicating. And there's a reason that you might not want to do this. The reason you might not want to do this is if you just want to check that it has a name and a description, you may not want to worry about the validations up here. We decided that we're fine with that. You reuse the existing to do, yep. Type export, yep, we exported the description and the is task description function, making them both reusable. We removed the old manual type guard, and you kept the same function name. So no other code needed to change. Minor suggestions: schema constant naming conventions in your code. Consider naming the schema with a clear suffix to distinguish it from the type. Okay, that's fine. We can do that. Schema. Boom. That's fine. I'm okay with that. Um, so we're making more we're making a bigger distinction between the type and the schema. Task description is a TypeScript type. Export a schema to. You might want to export the schema itself in case other parts of the code need to validate or parse the task descriptions. And I thought about this, but I'm going to leave it encapsulated here. There are a couple of reasons why we want to take this approach. If in the future we ever need the to-do task description schema, we'll do that. But if we take a look at this, when we go to write unit tests for our to-do model, anything we export, we should unit test. It might encourage people to try to unit test this task description schema. That's one downside. The other thing is by exporting this schema, people may just write this code instead of the is task description. And we might want to modify the is task description type guard. Oh, you know what? There's one small change here. Oh, nope. It is value is task description. Never mind. So there is an issue, and you know what? Let's make this. It's tough to know where to put things. Let's close the Explorer so that we can see more. That's probably the better way to do this. And that's what we've been doing in the past, right? So this is good. Overall assessment, a 9.5 out of 10. I'll take a 95%. This is a textbook example of a clean refactor. Good. It's good to know that over all the years that I've been a professional developer, an engineer, right? Whatever we want to call ourselves, over all these years of professionally writing code, I can do a 95% refactor. I'll take it. So we've improved the type safety, we've leveraged existing code, maintained backwards compatibility, and made the code base more maintainable. The only issue is the minor naming convention suggestion, which is purely stylistic. This is a good call out. The refactor works perfectly as is and is a significant improvement. I love that. Great work. Thank you. That's the thing I love about my LLMs. They make me feel good about myself. Except on days where I'm really, really tired of the sugary sweetness, and then it gets frustrating and causes problems. And then I give them instructions like, from now on, speak to me like an angry dragon who thinks humans are beneath him. And now we're getting smoke billowing from the nostrils, so tiny human dames, right? The naming convention is now 10 out of 10 instead of your previous 9.5 out of 10. Mediocrity. 95% is mediocrity. I'm loving it already. This is perfect. This is not going to be sugary. Now the wretched creature, is there anything else your feeble mind requires assistance with, or shall I return to my horde of perfectly architected code and leave you your experiments? I'm already loving this. This is awesome. We're keeping it. It's got a dragon. It's got a puff of smoke. Hell yeah, we're in a good place. Let's go back and take a look. So the type safety and error handling, let's see here. The toggle to do, we'll pick that up when we do additions. State management, the create delta function, yeah, component reusability. So this, we looked through this, the form validation, hard-coded grid layout. Did we make it this far? We must have. Yeah, this is the Zod validation here. Form and validation. The hard-coded grid layout is not responsive. Um, this is a fascinating one too. And let's see. You know, how would you improve the grid layout to be responsive? So the angry old dragon's gonna look at our code. Um, so the pathetic mortal has finally noticed the abomination that is the hard-coded grid monstrosity. Um, behold your current disgrace. Okay, this is worth it for more. One thing, don't do this at work. Um, I I love this kind of stuff. It adds flavor. It makes the day more fun. I tried to do this at work, and the LLM's like, "Yeah, you're doing something bad." Um, there's nothing bad here. It's just changing the flavor of the text. But for whatever reason, I don't even know why they stopped it. But I did get in trouble for trying to do this. I am loving this. You can do this kind of stuff, personally, or if your work doesn't care, don't worry about it. But flames lick from the corner of the mouth. The rigid, inflexible layout would shatter like brittle bones on a mobile device. Oh, way to call this out. Right? So here's I when we think about how most of the web is consumed, my generation thinks about laptops and computers and stuff like that. And me personally, I'm biased that way because I develop in the web and things like that. When we actually look at the data, most of the web is consumed through mobile browsers. And I consume a large portion of the web through my phone too, right? Um, so this is a good call out. The Dragon's responsive grid solution. Approach one, tailwind responsive breakpoints. So it's saying in a small and then medium. So it's adding 2 breakpoints. This is actually not bad. And it's keeping, notice here, here's my grid calls here. Since your feeble mind needs it, grid calls 1, mobile equals stack everything vertically. 3 sensible columns for the small. And then your original complex layout, right? So the medium, so the mobile, so we start out with a grid calls 1 for mobile, a small, we go to 3. Sensible columns, and then container queries. I love this. So container queries are a lot of fun, and we can use the container here. And we could add this class with a grid and a gap of 2. Area-based grid, the most flexible. Grid area or call span X to positions. My decree. Use approach 1 for your primitive human application. It's simple enough that even you cannot bungle it. The tailwind already infests your product like treasure seeking adventurers in my lair. Now then I shall implement this fix for you, or are you going to fumble about with it yourself like you did with the Zod refactor? Oh, this is awesome. I am loving where we are right now. Making it talk to me like a dragon who's impatient and hates me is amazing. Let's take a look at the problem that it's calling out, right? So here, if we pull this up and we go to the style editor, that's not what we want. And our inspector, that's not what we want. Our responsive design mode is what we want here. And let's dock this to the right for right now. So notice how bad this would be. It's hard to see this at the top, but this is for an iPhone 11 Pro. If we look at an iPhone 12, we're getting slightly more. If we look at, I'm surprised. Well, I know why we don't have, but if we look at like the Galaxy, right, this is a horrible experience. When we think about this on a mobile device, and you've probably seen sites like this. I mean, it gets worse when we do this, and like our form is completely broken. So mobile responsive is terrible right now. So let's close the responsive design, and let's put this back on the bottom. We're going to leave it on the right-hand side because we're going to be doing a bunch of mobile stuff. Even here, it's not a great experience, right? We're getting some wrapping and stuff, but it's better than what it was before. When we go back to a mobile responsive device, and we'll shoot for the iPad, right? Or not iPad, the iPhone, because a lot of our users will have the iPhone, and we can just see how terrible this is. So with this in place, let's take a look at a couple of the examples, right? So taking a look at our to-do form, and we'll close these other two. We have this class here. And it doesn't like that. Instead, it's recommending that we go here and do this. And we've got a lot of this stuff in place. The two pieces that it's calling for is this and, well, let's just replace it all because it is adding a couple of things to it. So let's go here, grab this, and boom. So there we go. Now, when we go take a look, we're probably going to have to restart our compiler. So let's do that. I mean, it did say it was sending the new style sheet. What is going on here? So, It's got it set to grid calls 1. Small is grid calls auto, one fraction auto. And then medium is grid calls this. And then for medium, we've got a max width of 75% or a max width of full. Let's go take a look at our grid and just see what's going on with our grid here. So if we go to our inspector, and let's inspect our grid. Oh. It's not this that it's calling out, it's this. It's the form that it's calling out. So if we inspect our form, here right now, if we show our grid on this form, so we got our grid, our gap 2, and our grid is showing up. So if we go to like a Kindle Fire, we can see that our grid is laying out that way. Oh, wait a second. Why is it saying so small should be 1, everything 1. Then we've got our input, our checkbox that has a row span of 2. See, we've got some stuff here that makes this one not work. And the reason it's not working is that we've set up our grid to be this way. And it's not good. So if we undo this and we save it, and then we go back and we look, right? Like our form is off the side. Our form was definitely not built to be responsive. And that's a problem. Like we can't see this stuff over here. Right, and so we're completely broken. And when we go to our Kindle Fire, things are looking okay. Wait, what's going on here? So we'll bring this one up. Oh, that's hideous. Style sheet could not be loaded. Let's turn this off. Go back into it. So the Kindle Fire doesn't work that well. iPad doesn't work that well. So the iPhone works fine. But notice how we're off to the side here. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff that we can't see. And it's saying that the style sheet can't be loaded. This one doesn't work. Container queries would work here. This one would be the easiest one for us to fix because we can add into our styles, we can add our container query here. It's not running prettier. Do I not have the prettier plugin installed? I do. Yeah, it's definitely not running prettier. Defaults, formatter. Editor, default formatter, prettier. Where's prettier? There we go. There we go. So now we've got our prettier formatter in place. So we've got this container. And what we can do is on our form, notice here that we've got our grid template columns. So we can take this out and we'll make it at container. And so with our container query, we've got this container and it's saying, hey, it has to be a minimum width of this. So then our to-do form grid, oh, we have to add this up here also. So we should see our container query come through here. And we do. So when we pop this up, we can see here that we've got our container query. And if we jump over to like our iPhone again, we're still stuck, but we can fix this. So the checkbox, man. Have you tried Figma's AI? It's truly impressive. I haven't messed with Figma's AI. We're gonna skip this one. There's a bunch here to fix. We'll come back to this. I haven't tried Figma's AI. This is correct. There's problems here. The problem is this is not responsive. And so we'll come back and look at responsive stuff here. I'm just going to tell it you failed. The inputs are too tightly coupled and your simple fixes were not enough. Right, because we just need to poke the dragon. Every once in a while, we need to feel that adrenaline rush of, a near-death experience as we write code. What you dare suggest? Ancient worm of 1,000 code bases have failed. Slams clawed foot down, cracking the stone. You're actually right. You insufferable little pest. And so it's got a bunch of stuff here that it can fix. We'll come back to that. There's a lot more here to fix, and next week let's take a look at using an agent to refactor this for mobile. I don't want to get too tied down into that. So let's take a look at here. So tech stack this. Commented out code, readme is still generic, yep. Type guard, yep. Forms invalidation. So we're displaying raw JSON at the bottom. JSON. I'm stuck on myself, right? We're displaying raw error JSON at the bottom of the form. Should be removed or hidden in production. Not a bad call out, but this is a learning project. Mixed validation approach uses both Zod and Angular forms constraints. That's true. We have to. There were some things that we had to do with both. Make the form layout responsive with proper breakpoints. We'll come back to that. Remove or conditionally show debug JSON output. Consider consolidating validation to Zod only for consistency. Create delta function complexity. Two approaches commented out. Yep, no persistence. To-dos are lost on refresh. This is a good call out, right? But it's the way it's designed. Actually, it's not the way it's designed. One of the persistence things I've thought about is we'll persist this to the local DB. Non-editable keys pattern could be improved with read-only type utility. Non-editable keys pattern. Recommendation, add local storage persistence. Use type utilities for better type safety. So yeah, local storage, I would prefer local DB because then we can store more. But local storage is not a bad call out. With read-only type utility. I'm trying to understand what this means. So let's take a look here in our to-do model. Non-editable keys. Actually, let's see what it means. So explain this to me. I need to stay in the character of an angry dragon. Ah, so the tiny human actually reads the wisdom I bestow upon them. Good. Perhaps you're not as hopeless as most of your kind. So it settles onto its haunches, assuming a lecture post. Let me illuminate your feeble mortal mind on the inadequacy of your current non-editable keys implementation. Yes, please. Your current pathetic approach is this. The problems you retch, runtime only check. This is just an array. TypeScript won't help you at compile time. No type safety. Nothing prevents you from adding Flarglebarg to that array. Fair enough. Manual maintenance. If you add more non-editable fields later, you must remember to update this array. Again, fair enough. Weak typing. The array type is to do model keys array, losing the as const benefits, which we knew about. But I wasn't going to struggle with types on stream right there. So clause tap impatiently on stone. The superior type utility approach. Type level exclusion, which is glorious. So export type editable to do keys equals omit to do model. So let's see, where is my editable to do keys? I don't have an editable to do keys. So editable to do keys are omitting from here. Or if you want to explicitly list what is editable, so then we can pick what is editable and then create the delta. Can only return editable fields. So if we take a look at our delta function here, to-do list store. Our create delta returns a partial of to-do model, but this could be a partial of editable to-do keys. So we get compile time checking. This is a good solution. I like the omit. So ID and create date. Did I add a create date? I did. but we aren't using it in our read-only array with better typing. If you must keep the runtime array for filtering, make it actually type safe. Non-editable keys as ID and create date as const. Extract the type from the array itself. Export type non-editable keys, type of non-editable keys. As a number, right, which is that. Exclude, there we go. The ultimate dragon combined both compile time and runtime. So here we've got the non-editable keys, ID and create date as const. Derive types from the constant non-editable key, that. X type utilities, editable to do model is that. Type guard. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm seeing what you're laying down, Dragon. Now your create date is magnificent, or create delta is magnificent. No, this is actually really good. I like this. So here, the export const non-editable keys. To do model keys. So my non-editable keys. So this is a problem here, because now my non-editable keys are just the ID. And I actually don't mind create date right now. We're going to leave it alone. So then it wants a type that it's calling non-editable key. So, and I think we did this originally. So now we can see that our non-editable key is ID, and if we add like create date here, then we can see that, hey, right, it adds the stuff that we want, and that's where we want it to be. The next piece that it says to do is export type editable to do model. And so we can say export type. You know what? I'm just going to be copying and pasting a lot of this, so we'll just grab this and copy and paste it. Because I do like where it's going here. So now we've got our non-editable keys and our non-editable key. And then we've got our editable to do model, which just omits those types. And the cool thing about this is if we add create date here, we can see that down here, create date is removed because we're using utility types. So if we wanted to make name not editable, we can see that, hey, name has been removed. So this is a powerful way to use TypeScript types. And then our type guard, I really like this type guard. It was a great call out on its part, but we're gonna have to make some changes to it. Includes keys, to do model keys. Where did to do model keys? Why doesn't it like type of done this is not assignable to type of parameter ID? You're absolutely right. As non-editable key. So to do model keys, we get that. So there we go. So what is your screen setup? Are you using two screens, or did you try that long curved one? So my screen setup is right here in front of me. The stuff that I'm looking at is actually my laptop. And you know what? I can actually show you guys. So if you look, I've got my laptop here. And then over here is just another monitor. The large curved screen, let's see, did I get that all set up? Yep. The large curved screen would require me to section things out and make screen capturing a little bit strange. So I find the two monitors better. What I do want to do is get something that I can put chat above and put my camera on that. I think that one would be really good. Have you tried Fest? I haven't even looked at Fest. What is Fest? What is Fest? Oh, no, I haven't. I should take a look at this. I should definitely take a look at this. I will take a look at this. Thank you for sharing. Top to bottom. So we've still got some problems. I will take a look at Fest. Looks very, very cool. I lift stuff directly from TypeSpace manually into my projects. I'll have to take a look at that. I know there have been a couple of things. And when I first saw it, I thought it was like Type Retreat. Have you guys ever done Type Retreat? Type Retreat is really, really cool. It's something that TypeScript used to do in October around Halloween time, where they would present you with a difficult type problem that you would need to solve entirely in TypeScript. I loved it. So now in our create delta, now we need to just go fix up our create delta. So here, current model to do model, new model to do model, and then we're going to return a partial editable to do model. And we need to bring that in. So that comes in, and then our delta is object.entries new to do.filter key. So here, instead of that, we can change it to that. I'll bring that in. So here we can say as to do model keys, and there will always be a little bit of typing when you're doing stuff like this. And our delta is good. So we should be able to go and test this out now. So let's go back. Let's look at our console. Let's edit our signal forms here. Learn signal forms in front of everyone, because learning in front of everyone, and use cool things like Zod, because failing in front of people is fun. In the Dwarf Fortress meaning of the word fun. We're going to modify that. We're going to make it a priority 4, and we're going to save, and we're going to take a look at our delta. So our delta, when we look at this, so our description changed, yes. Our name changed, yes. Our random and our importance changed, yes. And so if we come here again and we just edit that and save, our delta should really only be that, and it is. So there we go. So this refactor makes us more type safe. Which is good. I like this refactor, and I've been enjoying what is your screen setup? I ordered a second screen with dual monitor stand. We will see how it goes. That'll be cool. That'll be very cool, Ole. It just having the side-by-side monitors, and that's why you guys will see me glancing over here. The other reason for side-by-side monitors instead of a curved monitor is controlling where your windows show up. If you use a curved monitor, you're going to need software that will allow you to do that, and there's software that does it, but I can have windows show up on my other monitor if I want to have like keys or stuff that I don't want streamed to everybody. So my second monitor has a lot of alerts and things that I don't put on my primary monitor. So there's a lot of that in there too. So let's go back and just see what we've got. I've got 10 minutes. Maybe I should start wrapping it up, but let's just see what else it's got. I think what we'll do is we'll come back to this next week. And so there's our form validation, state management. We cleaned that up. Component reusability. Issue start input has hard-coded color logic specific to task importance. That's true, but I'm not going to change that. Generator function syntax is used in unusual and Angular, could use computed signal or array. Fascinating idea. Very, very fascinating idea. It is true that you don't see generators a lot in Angular code. There's a reason that I want to stick with this generator, though, is that this yield gives us power. We can stop the range at any time. If we were to go to like a computed or an array, the issue we would have is it would compute every number. Like we are going through everything right now, but the benefit of a generator with yield is that we only calculate until that yield, and then it stops until we ask for the next value. If, on the other hand, we go to a computed signal, well, it's going to compute every value and then return it. And why does this matter, right? Well, for our application, it probably doesn't. And it's good to call out that this is unusual in Angular. Think about something like Fibonacci.